Okay, hello. I'm Sherman Silber. I'm the director of the Infertility Center of St. Louis, at St. Luke's Hospital here in St. Louis. And I've been asked to give a brief introduction of just 3 to 5 minutes about my upcoming paper, Infertility and Sterility, to start a chat. And the title of the paper is Intrinsic Fertility of the Human Oocyte. And it's statistical data we derive from over 14,000 natural IVF cycles with single embryo transfer, in which, if there were any extra frozen embryos, those cycles were removed, so that we had as accurate as possible a determination of what the intrinsic fertility was of a single oocyte in IVF in relation to the patient's age. So the interesting thing to me is that with Patrizio's work and other work and that of Anna Cobo, it was generally accepted that there's about a 4 to 6% live baby rate per oocyte in IVF, meaning it might take more than 20 to 25 oocytes, and Anna was able to calculate up to 40 oocytes to have a really high chance of a live baby with IVF. And yet, with natural cycle, with no stimulation and single embryo transfer, what we found was that the pregnancy rate for women under 35, or the live baby rate, was 26% rather than 4, 5, or 6%. So there was really a 5-fold greater pregnancy rate per egg. We're not talking about pregnancy rate per transfer or pregnancy rate per embryo, but there was a 5-fold higher pregnancy rate per egg when there was no stimulation than when there was ovarian hyperstimulation. Now, we're not advocating natural cycle IVF. It is very difficult. There's so many cycles where you don't retrieve an egg, where the patient is disappointed, and timing is difficult to do. We're not advocating that at all. But here are 14,000 natural cycles in which we're able to use this data to try to determine what is the intrinsic fertility of a single human egg in relation to the patient's age. So I'm going to just show the major graph that was infertility and sterility. Can they see the graph okay? Yeah. So it shows that there is an absolutely perfect logistic curve that explains the relationship of the live baby rate per egg to the age of the woman. And it starts out very high at really 26% live baby rate per egg, and by age 34 it begins a steep drop and then levels off again by around age 43. Now, it's extremely low at age 43, but it still exists, but the chances are maybe 1 or 2% per egg, but it's very high. So this graph shows that the live baby rate per egg is dramatically higher, 5-fold higher, if you have no stimulation than if you have hyperstimulation. Now, of course, with hyperstimulation, you'll get more eggs, and so maybe the pregnancy rates will balance out and be fine. But the pregnancy rate per egg is dramatically higher if there's no stimulation at all. Now, we'll take that a little bit further, and, well, one other interesting point to make. Sorry to belabor this, but we know that a woman's fertility goes down from her teen years through her 20s and early 30s to 35. But the fertility of the eggs hardly go down at all. So this demonstrates that IVF is doing something to help women get pregnant other than just stimulation, which might give you more eggs or better quality eggs. IVF is having a strong impact on the fertility of the egg, even in women that we know are becoming less fertile with age. Now, I'm just going to show you another interesting phenomenon. If we look at this graph and you look at the red rectangles and the blue rectangles, This line is the logistic curve of the overall the pregnancy rate or live baby rate per egg that I showed you. And you see that if we do a day 3 transfer or a blastocyst transfer, day 3 is in blue, blastocyst is in red, the results are very, very, very similar per egg. There is a statistically significantly lower live baby rate per egg with blastocyst than day 3, but although it's statistically significant, it may not be meaningful because the difference is relatively small. What's more dramatic is how close they are to each other. Now, we can look at it in another way, and this is where you just draw a line showing the live baby rate per oocyte with blastocyst transfer versus day 3 transfer. Now, for younger women, it seems to be higher per oocyte, and for older women, it is higher per oocyte with day 3 transfer. But certainly, if we look at the majority of women, there's no difference between blastocyst transfer and day 3 transfer. So that may just heighten the controversy that exists, because we know the pregnancy rate per transfer of embryo for blastocyst is higher, obviously, than for day 3. But the pregnancy rates for egg are really no better for blastocyst and might be even a little bit worse. So with this unique series, and it's very hard to gather 14,000 natural cycles and determine the pregnancy rate per egg after subtracting the cases where there were leftover untransferred embryos, but it's at least very clear what we can expect, that even for fertile couples, we can't expect more than a 25% live baby rate per month of unprotected intercourse, because only 25% of those oocytes in a natural cycle are going to be able to result in a live baby based on our single embryo transfer IVF data. So hopefully this paper will stir up some discussion and maybe be useful for patient counseling. And maybe the most important thing is it's a very dramatic way of showing why women ought to either freeze their eggs before 35 or have IVF before age 35 if they're suffering from infertility. So thank you very much.